welcome to Pedantic Handwavium, the podcast that tries to explain fictional worlds using science. I'm Simon.
And I'm Jeff.
So Jeff, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Probably to turn into terrifying animals.
Specifically, does it have to be terrifying animals, or could you also turn into, like, I don't know, a pug?
Well, maybe a chicken with phoenix plumes, but that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a book series that I know, and you might also know.
You might know me or the listener.
You, Jeff, the person I'm talking to.
Okay. That's good, because I was confused.
Yeah, I guess I am talking to a larger group than just one. Also, you, the listener, might know. It's the Animorphs. You know, those good old books from the 90s about 5 American teens who could turn into animals.
Sure. That sounds like a thing.
Yeah, so basic premise is 5 American teens find a dying alien.
All right, good start.
Yeah, and the alien gives them a little box, and they all touch it. And when they touch it, they gain the power to turn into any animal that they have touched.
Oh, is that how that works? I thought they could only turn into one animal. I mean, other than human, of course.
So they can turn into anything that has DNA.
Okay.
And they store that DNA. So they can be like, I have a tiger form or a chimpanzee form. But
or a tardigrade form.
Or yeah, I guess actually if you had like fungi on your hands, you could turn to fungi or like bacteria. How would that work? I don't think anyone does that. Anyway.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it has to be like eukaryote.
Eukaryotic? Yeah, I don't think they turn into anything that's not a eukaryote. I don't even think they turn to fungi or plants. I think they only turn into animals. So maybe it also has to have like a similar cellular structure.
Or nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I do think they turn to bugs.
Ah, well, there goes that idea. Thanks for shooting another one down, Simon.
Sorry. Yeah, they definitely turn to invertebrates.
Cannon.
Because they turn to starfish. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure there was a purpose that suited.
I think actually there wasn't. I think one of the women...
They were just testing it out?
Yeah, it was like, hey, this would be cool if I was a starfish. And then she gets cut in half and there's 2 of her. And they each have like different parts of her personality. Because, you know, that's how that works.
Okay. Yeah, so one got left brain and one got right brain, and they're really leaning into that.
Yeah. Remember how I was saying that this book is pretty much the equivalent of the Richard Feynman lectures on quantum electrodynamic theory in terms of science?
Did you say that?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No, I must have zoned out.
Yeah, so this, I found, listener, while I was listening to this, while I was researching for this, that a lot of the parts of this book aren't so much actually like science fiction as much as they're just like plot development.
Okay.
Which makes sense because it's a book, which is a thing Jeff said to me before this when I brought that up to him. He was like...
Yeah, so rather than making something that is plausible, they made a plot and then turned them into starfish instead.
Yeah.
The 5 American children.
Yeah, or they found kind of like cop-outs like, it's an android. And you're like, okay, so it's a robot that just is really advanced.
Oh, no, the kids aren't murdering anybody. They're just robots.
Oh,
it's fine.
No. They're definitely murdering. They like actually murder people, which is kind of cool. But, you know. Anyway, So this was
Right.
like a Pulp Fiction kind of style book. Like it came out in a whole bunch of different, very small volumes. I think there's like
Mm-hmm.
51 of them, maybe more. I don't know.
51 with like 25 different authors, or was it actually the
Nope,
same author?
it's one. It's one author. She does everything.
Huh. All right.
And then there's like a whole bunch of like spin-offs. We're gonna include the spin-offs just to include more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was actually scraping where to find things in this book that needed to be addressed. However,
Because most of it's pretty spot on,
yeah,
right?
oh, it's exactly well because it's cop outs and they're not fun. Like androids are not fun to explain. They can exist. They almost do exist.
Yeah, they basically are very close.
Yeah. So the main bad guy in this world is
Mm-hmm.
a type of parasite called a Yeerk.
Okay.
And what Yeerks do is
Mm-hmm.
they go in through your ear into your brain, and then they can control like your motor functions, and they can use your senses and things like that.
So are they like a flatworm, or are they like cordyceps, or how do they do?
I think more like a flatworm.
Okay.
I think they're supposed to be. They're described as like grayish worms, grayish slugs.
Mm-hmm.
So, question:
Mm-hmm.
how do they do this? I mean, it's expressly described that the human beings inside of the body can still
Mm-hmm.
think. So they're trapped in their own body,
Okay.
but they can't control anything.
Can they eventually get control back?
Yes. They
Ah,
can.
well, there goes the severing the spinal cord idea.
Well, so I was also that's what I was thinking too. I was thinking like what if they somehow like hijacked the spinal cord because then you have a lot you can kind of sift through the information that's coming into the
Mm-hmm.
body. The
Oh, actually, that's an idea. Yeah, they just like override like the brain signals with louder signals.
ooh, yes. I do like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you do it like so the neurotransmitters that are used to control movement and control like a lot of the body.
Mm-hmm.
The idea you have is that if they overproduce that more than the human can, the
Mm-hmm.
human's production of those things will
Oh,
diminish.
actually, or um for like neurotransmission, chemical transmission, they produce like the parasite produces something that otherwise blocks reception of those signals,
Hmm.
and also a chemical like so it becomes an intermediary blocking the human chemical
Yeah,
and can transmit the alien chemical.
and so with the human beings, actually, there's part of the book where human beings get like tired out, like they can only fight back for so long before they just become docile.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is when the equilibrium in the brain has reached a point where everything that's producing all of those chemicals
Mm-hmm.
is just withered and dead because
Yeah.
it thinks there's too much of that chemical in the system, but there's really none of it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Or at least none useful. Yeah.
The question is though, how do they get access to what are those things called, like sight and taste and things like that, senses? How do they get how do they get access to the senses? Because the senses are they're 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 not they don't go through the spinal cord, and
Right.
they're not as driven, I think, chemically driven as you get with movement. Or
Right.
maybe they are.
Um
But I feel like it's still tough because you have to have a system. It has to go through the brain. Like sight has to go through the brain to be sight.
Right. Yeah, so how does the parasite intercept those signals?
Yeah. Or does the parasite not intercept those signals and instead can compute. See, the problem is that like if the year can take over anything that has a brain, which is kind of in the books, like even alien brains, how is it taking in drastically different information and being able to be like, oh, this information is sight, this information is taste.
Yeah, that is a good point because they would be likely handled very differently. Like the signals, the input would be handled very differently.
Yeah.
I think maybe because there would be like just too many different ways that those inputs could potentially be coming in from different, aliens or animals that they're taking over. It's not necessarily the host's senses that the parasite is using. It has some retention of its own senses externally.
So the thing is that it's specific that the Yeerk actually have almost no senses in their natural
so
form.
it is entirely reliant.
Yeah.
Huh.
It pretty much only has like sense of like in their natural habitat, Yeerks pretty much have like a sense of I think touch, and they just float around it in pools and mate, and that's pretty much it. And then they wait for more intelligent creatures to walk by, and then they infect them. Or not more intelligent, but more, what's the word?
Sentient?
Yeah, not even sentient. Just things
Sapient?
with. But it's not. It doesn't have to do with like a level of intelligence because they are intelligent sentient creatures. It has more to do with things that have a body and have senses, unlike the Yeerks. So more just complicated, probably more complex creatures to come by, and they can hijack that. So I'm wondering if what is something that's got to be completely. I mean, so we can assume sound and sight are probably going to be based on the same in every, or what we would call sound and sight are going to be based in every creature the same. Like it's going to be light waves and it's going to be sound waves.
Right.
Yeah. Even if you have something like sonar, which bats can see, that's really hearing that's being used to do spatial reasoning.
Yeah, well, the issue's still, it's unloading all of the sense processes on the host brain.
Yeah.
And it has to pick up those signals, and, alien brain would handle those differently than a human brain, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult to, like, how would it would have to interface with the human brain, with some brain.
What I'm seeing is that the Yeerk is really like a Linux operating system, and it can interface with both Windows and Mac computers by like wine wrapping and doing whatever that does to do Mac. I don't know why you would do that with a Linux system, but but maybe that's how it is. Maybe it finds the most general interaction. So it finds like the binary of the sensory system. And it has to it is essentially just a brain. It has very little motor function, and it's really just a brain. So it has the processing power to take in a lot of senses and then be able to use them.
Okay, yeah, just for whatever reason it specialized in having the kind of generic ability to access those rather than having them itself.
And maybe even accessing the physical structure, so like an eye, rather than accessing the optic part of the brain, which is in the back of the head. And then just taking in whatever, it probably has to do some amount of like creative problem solving to be like, how do I compress this into something that makes sense? But then once it does that, it really just learns like, oh, so when I see this, that's a television. When I see this, that's a dog. When I see this, that's a, and it's, so it's not so much that it's seeing like we would be seeing where it's been processed by the brain, but it's processing it all within itself. That's how what I would say. And I really like my Linux.
That did actually really help to frame it.
Yeah, if you like if you think about it like computer compression, that's how I was thinking about it. Like, it's just raw data, and when you compress it, that's usable by all computers.
And so when it sees, pattern X, Y, or Z, it knows that it is, a dog or a television or another person.
Yeah, so you have to assume that it's going to learn how to see and identify things kind of like humans, babies.
Right.
So that was the Yeerk. Now, the Yeerk are fighting against a race called the Andalites. Now, the Andalites are a lot less problematic because, well, they don't take over.
They don't hijack people.
Yeah, and actually, kudos to this writer. What's her name? K.A. Applegate? K.J. Applegate? K something.
I will get don't know.
I have it open. K.A. Applegate. It is K.A. Applegate. Yeah, so the Andalites are like this more technology-based race. Or like the more scientific-based race that are... So the problematic thing is that they're... Like, they have like a body of a deer. They look like a chimera, actually, from like mythology. Like, they have a body of a deer, the tail of a scorpion, then the torso of a human, but with a face that's like got no mouth, got a weird nose, and then eye stalks. So the reason...
All right, those seem like very different things, and I don't know why they would have all of them.
But that's the thing, is that what I like about it is that at least it's not an alien that looks exactly like a human. And actually, a lot of the aliens in this aren't supposed to look like things that are like easily recognizable as earthly. However, this does look earthly.
I mean, yeah, aside from having all earth animal parts, it is not hominid.
And that's really a refreshing thing.
Right.
What kind of creature would need... I'm assuming speed, maybe, from the deer body? But also need to be upright. It seems like
and to be able to sting things.
But it's not... So it's more like a scythe. Less like a stinger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's still terrifying.
Right? But I feel like the worst place to put a defense mechanism is on your butt.
Right.
Unless you're the size of a scorpion. Because it's not the length of a scorpion tail. It's like the length of a normal, like, horse's tail.
Okay. I mean, like, it can still, like, shoot around the side of them for defense, though.
I would assume. I don't know. I feel like it makes way more sense to have it, like... maybe this is,
like if it was anywhere else, or, in front of you where you can see what it's doing.
Yeah, maybe this is just me, showing my privilege as a person on Earth.
With front-facing eyes.
With front-facing eyes. But that seems bad design. I mean, I guess a lot of things in, life are bad design. Well,
I mean, yeah, you don't know what conditions are on their planet, so maybe there's some reason for it, I guess.
I don't know.
Do you know what the conditions are?
I might. I I just gotta find it. So the Andalites.
Mm-hmm.
I love all of the artwork for this because it's so weirdly CGI'd. It's great. I love it. Like it uses real humans as a lot of the stuff, but it's just weird. You know what? I have Andalite Homeworld right here.
Oh, hey, we found it. Terrifying place made only of scorpion stingers.
This is one thing I will like. I really, really like the fact that the Andalite homeworld is in the same galaxy as our own.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, just for
I mean, it's going to take forever to get from their planet to ours, but at least it's not a different galaxy.
Well, that's one of the things we got to explain. Nope, it says that there really isn't anything. Oh my God, I totally forgot. Andalites are also telepathic.
Well, they didn't have a mouth, so clearly.
Of course. How else?
I thought that was just implied when you said they didn't have a mouth.
Yeah, that's tough.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the scorpion tail is just a fashion thing at this point. Like, it did serve a purpose, but now it's just, the biggest, like, girthiest tail. It's just, like a status symbol.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, But I feel like, I'm trying to think of like a human analog to that, and I don't know if humans. I mean, I guess we get like piercings and things, but we don't grow an extra appendage.
Well, it's
I mean, go ahead.
Like a mark of nobility or something,
Oh, so you're saying more like a beard?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, that's not a. That was kind of an open.
Yeah, it's still not like great. I mean,
the way that human societies have found very specific phenotypes to be like a mark of a higher status.
Mm-hmm.
So like in a lot of Indian castes, there's really specific kind of looks that people have, like jaw shapes, nose shapes, things like that, that kind of indicate that they're from a higher class. And you get that a lot, I guess, probably in like, I don't know, I can only think of it in that context. But I know what you're saying. And I think that might work. Are you saying that normal creatures have just like normal tails?
Well, not necessarily like normal tails, but some mark that they assign some particular value to. Like, it's a different color, or they're longer, or they're like more chitinous. I don't know.
But that doesn't really explain why they have the tail.
In their early, like, why they have it. Yeah, just in their early history as a young species, they had it. They needed it for whatever environmental reasons, and then
just stuck around.
Due to that, when it was like mechanically advantageous for them to have it, they assigned like a status symbol to having a bigger, better scorpion tail.
Okay.
And then that just carried through their culture.
That makes sense. I also have the idea that maybe it actually isn't such a bad idea now that I'm looking at an Andalite.
Mm-hmm.
Because the eye stalks allow them to look behind that. So they might not be predatory creatures. Instead, they might be prey.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that, like,
well,
they're really meant to be like...
Yeah, they do have a lot of combinations, it sounds like. They have, like, prey sort of features and predator features and scavenger features.
Yeah. So, but yeah. I guess so. I guess it's not so incredibly weird to have this as like a vestigial structure of when, you didn't want creatures coming up from behind you. So you had this kind of sharp blade-like tail.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, fine. How are they telepathic then? I had an idea.
Okay,
but
that's good.
I already know it won't work. So the idea I had was...
Solid start. Let's start there. We'll build off of it.
The idea I had was maybe they're not telepathic, but maybe it's like a body language kind of thing where like they just automatically have these kind of ingrained um like visual cues that they can pick up from other creatures, other Andalites, and then that just is perceived as like a telepathy because there's really no interaction between the two of them.
Okay. I mean, you might not be too far off. Like, it might just be a subtle, like visual language that is supplemented with pheromones or something.
Yeah. The problem is
They also talk to people.
yep. Oh my gosh. I hate telepathy. I hate telekinesis and telepathy. Why can't you just do things that actually have physical representations? Like, it's not that difficult.
Right. Yeah, and it's difficult to see any sort of mechanical processes to try to explain.
Right?
Um
Yeah, because, like, unless they're, like, really enormous magnets that for some reason can mess with brain signals.
Even then, like, they would have to know very specifically how to do that to communicate to other types of brains.
That's true.
Now, are they able to just straight communicate with humans, or is there
They are. Yeah.
like a time period where they're trying to figure each other out?
Nope. I believe they're almost automatically able to communicate with humans. However, I have an idea. What if the earworm from the earfish from
The babblefish,
Yeah.
yes, from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
so what if you had a babblefish like parasite that was excreted excreted by the Andalites that could hijack or sit inside of your ear and make noises based upon the like pheromone or visual cues or sound pressure waves that the Andalite's giving off. So you can, if you were to like see an Andalite for the first time instead of like a vacuum where they couldn't like they couldn't reach you with this kind of, I'm assuming, like cloud of spores or something,
Right.
then you wouldn't be able to hear them. But as soon as you like breathe in that spore air or
That good babble spore.
yeah, babble spore, that's pretty cool. How about that?
I'm not against that. Like, it could be like made specifically to task. Oh, excuse me. Specifically to task for each flavor of alien that they try to communicate with.
Yeah,
So they would study humans, figure out how they communicate, and then
modify their
like,
kind of,
and you said they're like science technology based, so they could just presumably have the technology to engineer this.
yeah. Plus, I also like the fact that they have like a cloud of spores around them because they're so like majestic. It's like elves in Lord of the Rings, where you're like, yeah, we get
Except
it.
they also have dust clouds.
Yeah, except now they have just giant dust clouds where you're just like breathing in spores from them that allows them to hijack your nervous system. I really like that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that works.
Next thing, there's a type of. I'm just going with the aliens. I love the aliens in these books. We haven't even gotten to morphing. We'll get to morphing next. There's one alien
Good.
that's called a Hork-Bajir, and
All right.
a Hork-Bajir they're like 7 feet tall, green lizards or lizard-like things with beaks and large claws coming off of their forearms and their like shins that are used on their homeland to scrape bark off of trees that they use to eat.
Okay.
I have 2 questions for you.
Why do they also have beaks?
Well, yeah. Well, why do they
'Cause
all?
that's one of them.
Why do they have beaks if they're eating bark? And the other one is, I mean, I guess the bark on that planet could just be particularly nutritious because I guess it's not humanoid trees,
Yeah, it's not necessarily tree bark. It is just some sort of bark
like surrounding material.
analogous structure.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm sorry, but beaks. Like, do you?
I mean, like, if they need their like bone spurs to rip off the bark, presumably it's a hard fibrous thing that they really need to chomp on with that beak rather than grinding teeth. They just shear it or something.
Yeah. I like that. I might take it one step further and say it might be that on the underside of the bark are like seed pods. So then their beaks act like beaks do on Earth, where they're used for like specific grabbing and breaking of very hard shells. Yeah, that works.
That works.
Cool. Wow, that was really easy.
Yeah, no, we got one.
So now comes the tough part. The main technology in the book is their ability to morph.
Yeah, that one's going to be difficult. So explain the constraints of the people morphing into animals.
You got it. Okay, so the things we know about morphing. Morphing uses DNA that's stored inside their body at sub-zero temperatures to make it dormant and preserve it. You get it by touching something that's called the escafil device, which is a blue cube, and that's it. It looks kind of like the Tesseract. You can integrate skin tight clothing into morphs. I don't know how that one's going to work out, but you can't, like, you can only bring your body.
Right.
And if you stay in a morph for longer than 2 hours, you will stay trapped in that body and you will not be able to morph ever again. You can also not morph from a morph into a different morph. So you can't go like, I'm a bear, now I'm a wolf. It would be like, I'm a bear, now I'm a human, now I'm a wolf.
Okay.
And then the final thing is your mass. So if you're going up or down in mass, that mass comes from a place called zero space. And all zero space is described as it's the place that spaceships go when they travel faster than the speed of light. And then you retain a mental link to that kind of, because your body also goes to zero space, and you maintain a mental link between the two of them. So I am willing to just say that the skin tight clothing doesn't exist. That's them making the book like readable for kids.
Right. Yeah, I'll allow that exception.
Good.
I was okay with the idea of zero space and just saying, okay, it is like a buffer zone where mass and energy just exists. But it also is where spaceships go, which seems like a weird place, unless when you morph, you're taking mass from these spaceships.
Yeah. No, but you
difficult.
you can interact with spaceships. There's like a whole mythology of what happens if you like get hit by a spaceship while your body is in zero space.
Oh, wait. So you just like switch, like you put your body in zero space for a minute while you borrow a bear body.
Yeah, and you kind of transform your mass into whatever thing you need. I think there's one thing about this. So if we accept zero space as being a higher dimension, that just gets messy. I don't like higher dimensions. They suck.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, everything about that's rough.
Because there's no good way to get between them. You could say maybe like a different universe, kind of do like a Stranger Things kind of hole with it. Which I'm fine with Except that, I mean, no. Okay. Maybe it's a universe.
Yeah, like that's where I started thinking, where it's just like is a source of mass and energy to tap into, but I didn't really know how to follow up with it, you
Yeah,
know?
right. It's so tough to like. How do you get there? Yeah, we've dealt with this before, where we're like, well, it's kind of explained by string theory that if you have a membrane, you could technically punch through it, but it would take like just an insane amount of energy.
Yeah.
And I like coming up with novel solutions to these problems. This one in particular seems tough. I am trying to think of something like maybe it's not like zero space is maybe like the space between atoms, like maybe they compress it down to like Big Bang level, and like you get some weird stuff happening then. But then like how does that relate to spaceships? um
Yeah, like that little tidbit threw a wrench into the whole idea,
right
really.
right okay, let's say that what's someone that doesn't have any mass, photon, but
More
they
or
do have
less.
momentum.
Vacuum.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just so tough to go to a different dimension. I like a different universe. We're just gonna stick with that. We're just gonna say that
Yeah.
maybe ooh, cool idea. Okay, so imagine our universe, but rewind the clock by like 10 trillion years. So we're in a
Okay.
much smaller universe. Now, every single one of those places in space corresponds to a different place in space that it will be 10 trillion years later. So what if Z space is a universe that it's far younger than our own? So
Yeah, so like the ship wouldn't have to physically traverse
yeah.
as much
Yeah,
distance.
so it only physically has to traverse, maybe a light year, but in doing so, its space travel in our universe is, drastically higher. And if you go far enough back, you get to places where like causality is kind of weird, and you can go faster than the speed of light. And it's not a straight line, it's more like a curved line. Um
Right.
so I like that idea. And then maybe we can just do like, how do you get there? Maybe you're not getting there. Like that's what it is. Like maybe that's what the Escafil device allows you to do, is you are able to essentially like take all of your mass and then turn it into like an amount of energy that you can then siphon through, like maybe for like, yeah, like you can siphon it
Okay.
through a much smaller hole to get into a
Yeah, that
different universe.
is more plausible. Well, I mean,
It's
seems more doable than just like poofing the body somewhere else.
So then let's do like the mental link is not, I'm going to say this, the mental link is not from zero space. I hate that. It's bad.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and like how would you have that good of a connection? I feel like your brain is still your brain. I mean, if we're thinking of this as like, is like not you replacing, like swapping your body out, but instead turning it into something new. I feel like the Escafil device will identify what your controlling body is, and it'll try and change it as little as possible, which makes sense because brain cells don't regenerate or change nearly as quickly as the rest of your body does. So that's probably kind of how it identifies. It's like, okay, when I change, what's the things that are changing the quickest? The things that are changing very slowly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, so they remain more constant.
Yeah, and they remain more like relatively human in brain structure, if not
like structure, chemistry.
yeah, and maybe not even brain size so much. I don't know how to get over, like, they still have their own intelligence, but it might be that they don't have the capability of learning as quickly. So they still have like their human memories. They still can like put things together. They remember that, but they don't have like they'd have a really tough time with like object permanent and things like that.
Yeah, like they can't synthesize new information.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And that is actually explained probably a little bit by the fact that the first time they morph into a new creature, they have to like take over its brain, or it'll take over them, and they like act like that creature.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like the longer you are in a morph, the more takes over your brain and you become more like that animal. Okay, that's cool. But how does it the DNA? How does that work?
Right. Yeah, you said it's like stored in the body at a temperature
At sub-zero. I don't know what that means. Is that
Yeah, there is a lot
of zeros?
Well, like sub-zero on what scale?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
because that makes a very big difference.
I think we can assume it's not Kelvin.
I don't know where you would keep 0 Kelvin in your body, and I do not know how you would access sub-zero Kelvin.
Yeah, I agree. You know, what is it? It's a neg 70. Neg 70 is what most proteins are, or is it neg 20?
Not,
I can't remember. We should know this.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, it's kind of similar to our jobs to know this.
The sub-zero, I think that has more to do with preservation, and it keeps like the auto immune response down on those specific areas.
Well, yeah, I figured it is just somehow partitioned off.
Yeah,
like the whatever cube that you had to touch to get morphing powers just gives you a little like skin pocket that you keep all this other DNA.
Oh, skin pocket. Yeah, like they're called vesicles, aren't they?
Yes, actually, that is not as interesting as calling it a skin pocket.
I agree. I mean, they pretty
much more accurate term.
Yeah, so like it has like you have like vesicles just flying around your body that might have like identifiers on them, like this is the wolf DNA that you can access.
This is the bear one.
Yeah, and so then when they touch something, the vesicles on their skin take I'm assuming epithelial cells or whatever cells are on the outside and transform them.
Yeah, or it could just take whatever it can and then like
compiles the rest.
Keep what's viable and just reintegrate the rest, or like cannibalize what isn't viable, you know?
Okay, yeah. And do we see a problem with them being able to call up specific animals at specific times?
Assuming that the technology level of the whatever aliens gave them this power is advanced enough, like that could just be
an additional
like
thing.
Some sort of like obscure computer thing that it's like they have these vesicles are all indexed somehow.
Yeah, that makes. So then what is the Escafil device? Do we think it's like retrovirus that can somehow rewrite your body to create these structures? Is it like a really powerful radioactive thing that damages your DNA in a specific way to allow this to happen? That's what I like, because, you know, I like creating bad explanations that always lead to massive amounts of cancer in the people.
Yeah, no, it's a real sunny outlook for these guys.
Really. That's why you don't play with alien technology.
Just don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, there would have to be some way for it to interface biologically.
It must be.
So, yeah.
So do we think that it is a genetic change, or do you think that this is more like a parasitic thing that just lives in the body and then control it? I'm not
sure. Yeah, I don't. It's not necessarily like a parasitic thing.
I mean, I like the idea that it's like a virus that you pick up that's rewriting your DNA. and that yeah.
I mean, like, is it rewriting the DNA, or are you just morphing to a different type of mass?
I think you're morphing to a different type of mass.
Right, so you're not necessarily, like, turning
Yeah.
into
Oh,
that
yeah.
bear.
There's not really. I mean, you are turning into a bear, kind of.
Well, yeah, but you're not, like, not at a genotypic.
Oh, I don't
Quick,
know.
we gotta make those bear proteins right now.
I don't. Yeah, I can see the thing that you're talking about. I can see the problem is that, like, if you're changing someone's physical genes at the time, that's kind of a problem. But if you're not, then
Yeah.
how are they morphing? This is a really slow episode, but it's so difficult.
It is. Well, I feel like there's enough editing that you can get something serviceable out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, maybe it, like, there's just a section of Zero Space that is like the Animorph buffer that like calls upon whatever mass you need based on like the genetic imprint that you have in those vesicles from touching it.
yeah, well, I like that. I like that. I know what you're kind of saying here is that what you store in your body is not actually the DNA. The thing you store in your body is the index to the DNA in zero space.
Right, yes. And then Zero Space 3D prints whatever DNA you picked up.
Yeah, and so it could even have like it has essentially like embryonic it
Stem
grows
cells?
or yeah, but it grows the creature in zero space. And then once it's there and it knows where it is, you just kind of swap it out for your body parts.
Right, yeah, I like that.
I like that too. That makes a lot more sense. Not a crazy amount of sense because of how we describe zero space. You run into a little bit of issues, but I think that works better. Especially when you kind of think about the fact that like how they morph, that makes a lot of sense. I guess it just has to be like what you have in you is just directions on how to rebuild the mass and cells you're already receiving from zero space. And so I guess there is the DNA because it's just how do we rebuild this? And then,
right.
I mean, we could even do that the Escafil device is like nanobots. Like it's like an actual microscopic, mechanical, probably biologic creature that is just very efficient at its job of replacing and rebuilding cells from like muons and quarks, which is seems like it would take a long time, but maybe if you have like trillions of them inside of you and they're all the size of less than the size of a cell, then that's kind of what it does. So it takes all these like subatomic particles and then slowly builds them up inside your body. That makes most sense to me. And what you're like trading with zero space are just subatomic particles, or maybe just pure energy that you just have to go back to it, it's another compression issue where you have you have the codex to how to read that file type, and you're just rebuilding. You're just uncompressing the data that was just compressed. So you're probably not getting everything. You probably have a couple of problems with your creature that's being built.
But it gets you most of the way there.
Yeah, it probably gets you close enough.
Okay, yeah, that seems like a much more in-depth explanation
than we ever go into
what the books give us.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better, but it is more involved.
I think it's better. I always think more involved is better. Because even if you're like swinging wildly at quantum mechanics, at least you're trying.
Eventually you'll be right, depending on how long we research quantum mechanics.
Yeah. Like if you're really bad at writing science fiction and you don't know how the science part of it, just wait, 20 years, and then people will think your science fiction is quaint.
Right. Yeah.
That's all you have to do. Anyway, I think that's everything I had. Man, we did not do a lot.
Yeah, I think we covered, aside from whatever robots, but we can just assume that like those are robots.
Yeah, and we're not even gonna get into taxons, which are like these like bug creatures that eat everything. They're crazy. They're aliens. They're just aliens. They actually exist. Like they make
Space
sense.
locusts.
Yeah, they're space locusts. Actually, that's a pretty good description of them. But they're like space locusts that are like 8 feet long. They're just from a highly oxygenated planet, and they breathe through their skin. Anyway,
Sure.
thanks for listening to our podcast.
Rate and review us on, I was going to say YouTube. You can do that too. Also, iTunes would be great.
Yep. Or Stitcher.
Tell your friends about us.
Or any of the other podcatchers.
Yeah, any place that you listen to podcasts, you can probably find us.
Yeah, we're everywhere. Spotify, you should listen to us. We're also on YouTube. You know, I realized the call to action doesn't make much sense. Why? Because you have already found us. What you should really do is like and subscribe.
Take your friend's phone and subscribe them to us.
Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. You should give them the phone and be like, hey, have you ever wanted a really bullish white guy tell another white guy that all of his ideas are bad? You should listen to this podcast.
Yeah, that's a great selling point, I
think that's the best selling point. I get to be mean to Jeff.
What else? Go to our website, pedantichandwavium.com. Give us suggestions.
Yeah, you can also email us at pedantichandwavium.com. Contact at pedantichandwavium.com.
That's
what it is. Yeah, it's on our website. Thanks to Joe Sopchak for our theme music.
And that's it.
Yeah,
have a good day.
You too.
Well, I was talking to the audience. I don't care what you do, Simon.
This is a little mean.
Have a good day, depending on where you're listening. Good night. Sweet dreams.
We love you.
Have a great day at work. Well, I respect you as a friend.
I want to keep this platonic between us, listener.
Yeah, that about covers it.
Yeah, it does.
Goodbye.
I'm Simon.
And I'm Jeff.